So previously we had a look at the AND and the OR operators. Now, in order for us to understand a complex conditional statement, what I need to do is I need to understand what is an operator, and number two, the order, the precedence of those operators and how they are executed. And this will help you understand what JavaScript is doing, and it will help you to understand the output JavaScript is giving. Now, we have many operators in JavaScript. We have the assignment operator. You also have different kinds of assignment operators, such as plus equals, minus equals. These are operators. We have comparison operators, triple equals, double equals. And you also have your mathematical operators, which is the plus, which, again, the plus can polymorph, but we can use that for addition. You also have subtraction, multiplication. You even have brackets. And all of these are operators. And we have already established that in our mathematical statements, the order in which these operators are executed is very important. You will get a very different outcome if you change the order in which these operators are executed within a mathematical statement. You'll get a very different number. But what are operators in JavaScript? Well, if you can cast your minds back to when we started this course, I spoke about the browser and how it's divided up into little pieces. The browser, even though it looks like one solid application, is made up of mini applications. One of those mini applications deals with rendering the DOM, the other one deals with CSS, and the other one is the JavaScript engine that interprets your JavaScript. Let's focus on that little mini program. What that little mini program has is functions. And those functions could be our operators. So the equals operator, the plus operator, the minus operator, the multiplication operator. They are all functions within this mini program. So let's take a very simple statement, 5 plus 5. This statement contains one operator. So what the JavaScript engine does is it looks at that statement and it recognizes all of the operators in that statement. Now, at the moment, we've only got one operator in this statement. So what it's going to do is it's going to fetch the function that deals with the plus operator. And what it's going to do then is it's going to look at the left-hand side of the operator. And it's going to assign that value to the first argument, argument A. And then it's going to look to the right of that operator, and it's going to take that parameter and assign it to the argument B. Now that this function has all it needs, and again, this function you don't get to see, it will add those two numbers together, and it will simply return the value of those two numbers added together. Now let's go ahead and make things a little bit more complex with our statement. I'm going to say 2 plus 3 times 5. Now we have two different operators, and this will create an order of precedence with those operators, meaning that the way in which these operators are executed depends on their importance in the programming language. And JavaScript gets to decide the operator's importance. You don't. So we have now two operators, and they're going to call two separate functions. But what takes more precedence? So let's just take a look at BODMAS. Now, BODMAS is what we use in maths to determine the order in which we execute our mathematical statements. And JavaScript does follow BODMAS. Now, JavaScript does have its own precedence-ordered table, and that's because JavaScript has a ton more operators like equals, plus equals, minus equals, and so forth. There's tons and tons of operators. But let's just simplify things and take a look at BODMAS. So what we can see here is with BODMAS, the multiplication has greater importance than the addition. So, in lieu of that fact, and we know that JavaScript follows this pattern, this precedence, what happens is it will call up the multiplication function first that's going to deal with the multiplication operator. It's going to assign argument A, the parameter on the left, and argument B, the parameter on the right, And then once it's got those parameters, it will then multiply them together and it will return you the value of those two values multiplied. So 3 times 5 equals 15. Then JavaScript looks at the statement and there is another operator to execute which takes less importance, so that's why it's executed after, and that is the plus operator. It pulls the function up, it looks at the left and the right parameters, it assigns those parameters to the arguments, and then it adds those numbers together and returns the output. So the final equation will be 17. Now, if we were to just read this left to right, 2 plus 3 equals 5, 5 times 5 is 25. So that gives you a completely different result. But that's not following the order of precedence, it's just left to right. Now, it's important to note that most operators in JavaScript take a value from the left and from the right, so they take two parameters. However, there are some operators that are prefix and postfix operators, and prefixed and postfix operators only take a value from either the left-hand side or the right-hand side, depending on what operator you're working with. So for example, we can take a look at the variable I, which is equal to 0. Now, if I say plus I, it will increment the value by 1. But what it's going to do is it's going to call up a special function from the native code, and it's going to assign the value that's on the right-hand side. And then, once it's taken the value from that variable, it's simply going to add 1 onto the value and reassign it back to the variable. So that is prefixed because it comes at the beginning. Then also you have a postfix operator. Now that means I++. The operator comes after postfix. And again, that will call up a different function. Now this function works slightly differently, but its job is ultimately the same. It's to add 1. So what it's going to do is it's going to look at the value on the left-hand side, and all it's going to do is it's going to take the value from that variable, add 1 onto it, and then assign it back to the variable. It works slightly differently, so be careful, they don't work exactly the same, but we'll take a look at how the postfix operator here works in the next lecture when we talk about for loops and so forth, and you'll be able to see how it increments. And likewise, you have the decrement prefix and the decrement postfix operators. Again, depending on whether it's prefix, if it's prefixed, it'll take the value from the right-hand side. If it's postfix, it'll take the value from the left-hand side. And so there you can see that some operators will only take one parameter, one value. Now, the reason why we have the hierarchy, BODMAS, and even JavaScript with its own hierarchy, its own order, is to ensure that the calculation is consistent every time. If you have to consider, okay, what's going over here on the left-hand side of my equation, and I have to look at every single operator all the way across, I lose the integrity. I could make more mistakes by doing that. So by having a hierarchy, it allows us to have a pattern in which the equation is executed. And as long as we follow that pattern, we will get what we expect. So returning to our example, we have this conditional statement that checks to see if score is equal to the value of 12, but also has the data type number because we're using the triple equals, which checks the value and type. And the same goes for players. We also want players to equal the value and type of 6. So there we go. We now have those two values. The statement is true, and both sides of this AND operator are true. So this statement is true, and in the console we should get statement is true. Let's hit refresh. Now here's the big question. How did it actually end up printing this out? How did it figure out that this conditional statement is true? Well, in order for us to actually understand how this conditional statement was computed, what we need to do is take a look at the operator precedence. Now, Mozilla has created some fantastic documentation on this, so if you want to type in MDN for Mozilla Developer Network, operator precedence, you should get this page. And if you scroll down, you'll be able to see the table. Now, this table will tell us the operator and it will also show us the precedence of that operator. The higher the number, the greater precedence it takes. So we can see that the parentheses right here are in fact taking higher precedence, 19 being the highest. Then also you can go down the precedence list and just keep going down and down and down, and you can see that JavaScript has much more than the BODMAS precedence. That's really just for maths. But we have right here a much greater list of precedents because we have a ton of different operators that we can use. So all I want to do now is take a look at how it's evaluated my current conditional statement. So what I'm going to do is take a look at the operators that's in use. The operators that are in use is the triple equals, and we also have the and operator as well. So let's take a look at the and operator. So the and operator, you'll find it's right down here, which is logical and. Now, the issue is that this doesn't actually get executed first because it has the precedence of 6. Now we have the triple equals, and you can see the triple equals has a higher importance. And this has the precedence level of 10. So what's going to happen is the triple equals operators are going to be invoked first, and then the and operator will be executed. So what's happened is it will say is score equal to 12 in value and type, and it will return true or false based on that. So it will return true. Again, we have an operator over here, which again is on the same precedence level. That was an equals operator, and it was on the left-hand side, so it went to that one first. And then we have an equals operator over here, which is greater precedence than this operator, so it goes to this one. And it says, is that equal to 6 in value and type? True. And then after it's done executing the higher order operators, it then goes to the and operator, and it executes that. And it says, look, I want to know if this value right here is true and this value is true. I want both sides to be true, and they are, so that operator will just return true. And thus, that conditional statement will return true, and what we'll get is this printed out in the console. So that's exactly how it is computed by understanding the importance of the hierarchy. So now let's make this conditional statement more complex. And now I want to run through this conditional statement and find out whether it is a true conditional statement or a false conditional statement based on the order of operations taken. So don't forget, we have a lot of operators here, and they all have a precedence level. So we need to look at how the JavaScript engine is going to look and evaluate this conditional statement and find out whether it is true or false. So we have a triple equals operator. We also have the and operator, the or operator, and then we also have the greater than and the less than operators. Let's take a look at their priority level and see which ones are going to get executed first. So we can see here that the less than equal to, greater than and equal to operators, they have a precedence level of 11. Now you have your double equals, not equals, triple equals, and so forth. They have a precedence level of 10. So we can automatically see right here that these operators, these guys right here, are going to get executed first. Now, these two operators are on the same level. They both have a precedence level of 11. So what happens is JavaScript says, well, you both have the precedence level of 11, so the one on the left-hand side gets executed first. It takes priority. So is score greater than 20? Well, no, it's 12. So this will return false. Then we have the other operator, which again is on the precedence level of 11, is players less than 5. Well, players is 6, so that will return false. Now we have a few more operators to take a look at. Well, we know what comes next is the equals operator, because that has the precedence level of 10, and the and operator has a precedence level of 6, and the or operator is below with 5. So if we take a look at this, is score equal to the value and type of 12? Yes, it is. is players equal to the value and type of 6? Yes, it is. And then what happens is we have a few more operators here. What takes precedence? Well, the answer is the and operator. The and operator now takes the precedence because it has the level of 6. So it's going to look at the left-hand side of it and the right-hand side of it. It's going to get true on either side, so it will return true. Then we have the OR operator. Now, true or false? You always want the true answer, so it's going to return true. So this operator will return true. And then we have another OR operator. Again, this one was to the right-hand side of the other one, so it comes next. True or false again. And of course, we always want true. So that operator will return true. So this statement is, in fact, a truthy statement. And you must always go with this precedence level, and you will end up with the right answer. So you can find out whether it is a true or false statement. So now let's jumble things up a little bit. What I want to do is I want to cut out this comparison right here, and I'm just going to paste it on the end. And I could type in a statement that would fail, such as is score equal to the number 13. That would fail, but I'll just put the output right here. I'll just say false. Whatever is there is going to be false. So now that I've done this, I need to take a look and see whether this is a true or false statement. And I'm just going to save this and hit refresh. And it says the statement is in fact true. But why is this? Well, let's take a look at, first of all, the operators we're dealing with. What is the operator that has the highest precedence? Well, if you remember, we have a greater than comparison operator, and that has a precedence level of 11. So is score greater than 20? No. So that is going to return false. That's the first thing that's going to be invoked. Then we have the triple equals, and we have two of them. So it says, okay, we're on precedence level 10 right now. We have two operators, and we're going to go with the one to the left. So it's going to say, is players equal to the number 6? Which it is. So that will return true. Then we have another triple equals, which it's going to say, is score equal to the number 12? It's going to be true. Now we are left with the and the or operators, which we now know the and operator takes higher precedence. The and operator needs true on both sides, which it's got false on one side. So this will return false. Then we have the or operators. We've got two or operators. Again, they're on the same level, so it goes with the left-hand side one first, and it says false or false. Well, that's going to return false. False or true? Well, if you ask somebody, do you want a false answer or a true answer, you're going to want a true answer. So you always go with the true value at that point. So false or true will return true. So in fact, this statement is true, and that's why that statement returned true. So let's say I wanted this conditional statement to evaluate to false. Well, the way I would get it to do that is by encapsulating all of this code inside of the grouping operator. And what that will do is it will say, in this statement, I want you to go to this code first. I want you to evaluate this code first and then evaluate what's outside of the grouping operator later. And the reason why it goes to the grouping operator first is because it has the precedence level of 19. So what it's going to do is it's going to look inside of this grouping operator. It's going to take a look at the operators within here. Now, the top operator, the highest order, is the greater than. So is score greater than 20? No, it isn't. So that's going to return false. Then we have two triple equals. So it goes to the left-hand side one first. Is players equal to the value and number type of 6? Yes, it is. So return true. And also we have score. Is score equal to the number 12? Yes, it is. True. Then we have the or operators. So true or false, we get true, true or true, true. Then once everything has been evaluated, it will return the value. Now it looks at everything outside of the grouping operator. And it's going to take a look at this and it's going to say, is score equal to 13? The answer is no, it isn't. So this is going to be false. And now what it will do is it will look at the AND operator because that's the last one with the lowest precedence. And it's going to say false and true. We now know that it's going to return false. It must have truthy on both sides, so we get false. And once we get false, it will say the statement is false. So if I go ahead and undo all of that, I save this, I should get this outputted in the console. Let's hit refresh. It says the statement is false. So that is JavaScript operators explained in detail, their functions within the JavaScript compiler. Whenever you type them out in your syntax, you are invoking those functions and they are being passed parameters via the values around them. They are very useful. Without them, your scripts would be useless. You couldn't assign anything, you couldn't compare anything, you couldn't do anything with your script really. So the whole idea behind operators is you communicate with that compiler, you ask it to do certain things through those operators, and hey presto, you have got a working program.